Salve viatores, and welcome back to Let's Translate Phaedrus' Fables. This is where I have been translating from the Latin to the English, talking through my process and things that I find interesting with the fables, though not translating the poetry really, because these fables are poetry, they're in verse, I am a hexameter, but I'm terrible with it, so I just treat it like prose. If you're interested, here are all the fables that I have translated, and this last one will be the last fable I'm going to translate through. For now. Maybe someday there will be more. But anyways, let's get into Viatores et Latro. Viatores et Latro, the travelers and the bandit. You might notice, Viatores, that is what I refer to you all as, because travelers. I like referring to you all as travelers, because we're all kind of just travelers over the internet, going to different places, different sites. This is also called duo milites et latro, two soldiers. The two soldiers and bandit. I don't want that. Whatever. The two soldiers and the bandit. Viatores et latro is what the Perseus Tufts text calls this, and duo milites et latro is what the Latin Library text calls it, as well as most places I've seen. So, duo cum incidisset in latronem milites. Duo is just two. Cum could be a conjunction or a preposition. The conjunction oftentimes takes the subjunctive mood with the following verb, and the preposition takes the ablative case. We have no ablative here, so it's got to be the preposition. And when it's a preposition, it means when. Incidissent is the third person plural pluperfect, the isse, active subjunctive from incido. Incido means to fall, or really fall upon, meet, or happen upon. What I'm going to translate this as is happened upon. It really had happened upon for pluperfect. And it oftentimes takes in or inter plus the accusative, or dative case. So rather than just you happen upon and then something in the accusative case for the usual direct object, it takes something with a preposition like in. So literally like into latronum, the accusative form of latro, which means a bandit. And milites is the nominative or accusative plural form of miles, which means soldiers. So put this into English word order. I was about to type English. Cum, when, and then our subject, two soldiers, incidissent, a verb, had happened upon. In latronum, I would say you could just say a bandit. You don't have to really translate the in, because it's just kind of working as the direct object for incidissent. Unus profugit. Alter autem restitit. So unus is one. Profugit is the third person singular present active indicative form from profugio, and profugio means to flee or run away from. So one flees. Alter is a pronoun that means like other, so it could be just something like the other, or when it's like one of them does this, and the other, why? Autem is a conjunction, meaning it could mean but, or however, or on the other hand. So one, however, restitit. This is the third person singular perfect active indicative from resisto. So for some reason, profugit is in the present, but restitit is in the perfect. I don't know why it would be one flees, the other fought. It's just weird to change tense in the middle of the sentence, really. But it's not really fought. It's more like stood his ground, stayed, or opposed, resisted. The other, however, resisted. Et vindicavit sese forti dextera. Et, just the conjunction, and vindicavit is the third person singular perfect active indicative, like with resistit. It is from the verb vindico, which we had seen before, but I think I've got a better translation here. Because before I just looked at the Wiktionary entry, but looking more at the Lewis and Short, the full dictionary entry, it could mean to avenge, revenge, punish, or even to protect. I think I'm going to go with protect. So, and he protected. Sese is an emphatic form of se. Se is the accusative reflexive pronoun. So, himself, or oneself, or herself. And so, sese is like, he defended himself, being like really putting emphasis on the himself, that he did it for himself. So, protected himself. Forti is the dative or ablative form from fortis, which is an adjective that means strong, brave, firm, steadfast. Let's say brave. And because it is kind of contrasting with the other one who fled. And dextera is the nominative or ablative form, which you may also see as dextera sometimes, and that means the right hand. So, and he protected himself. But this has to be ablative because we already have the subject with vindicavit continuing from alter, and dextera cannot be anything else other than nominative or ablative. And forti agrees with it with the ablative. So, probably ablative of means with a brave right hand. So 2 soldiers found a bandit. One of them's a coward. The other stays and fights. Latrone exciso timidus accurret comes. Stringitque gladium. Den reacta paenulla. And we will stop there for a second. Latrone exciso. I'm pretty sure this is an ablative absolute. An ablative absolute is when you have a participle, like exciso / excisos in the nominative case, plus a noun. They are both in the ablative, and they are essentially independent from the rest of the sentence grammatically. So latrone is the ablative form of latro, so bandit, and excisos is the perfect passive participle from excido, which generally means to fall, but it could also be just excised, disappeared, destroyed. Oh, wait. Oh, I was only looking at one of them, because there's excido, which is generally to fall, but there's also excido. One is formed from ex plus cado, which means to fall, and the other is from the prefix ex plus gaido, which is to cut or strike. Okay, that makes a bit more sense, because usually I see it as... I mean, I guess I also sight translated it like this, because I did fell, which works, but let's say killed, beaten, destroyed, maybe even felled, and it's kind of literally translating the ablative absolute is the bandit having been destroyed or killed or whatever, and then so on and so forth. It's kind of just describing the context, but you could be a little more creative with it. After the bandit was felled, it just depends on context, really, how else you would want to do it. Because you could do it after or because or whatever else. It's very much up to context and the translator. Timidus, it's exactly what it looks like. The adjective that means to be timid or fearful or afraid, whatever, cowardly. So, and when it's just an adjective on its own, just like you could say the timid one, or you can go off of the Adjectives gender, here it's masculine, so you can see the timid man. Or you can go off context, since this is already said to be a soldier, the timid soldier. Accurate is the third person singular with the single T. Could be present or perfect, active indicative. I swear, doing Phaedrus, I've seen more verbs that have the same form for both the perfect or present third person singular active indicative. It's crazy. It just happens way more often than I would have expected. But it is from accuro, which means to like run to help or run up to. So the timid soldier, let's do perfect. Ran up to comes. Comes is the nominative or accusative singular and means a companion. So let's say his companion. Sometimes you just got to insert words into the English translation because Latin uses fewer words than English. Stringitque, the que suffix just denotes conjunction and. It's like et, except it's at the end of the word for some reason. I still don't know why you would use one and not why you would choose one over the other. Other than here, I could see it potentially being for the meter, but otherwise, I'm not completely sure, other than maybe just. But stringit is the third person singular present active. Oh, no, maybe I should do present for accurate, because I'd like to try to keep tenses consistent in the sentence. But it's present active indicative from stringo. Stringo means generally like tie together, or it could be unsheath. Especially here, when we next have gladium. Gladium is the accusative form from gladius. And if you know what a gladius is in Roman terms, his sword. It doesn't specifically have to be what we would call a gladius or the Spanish sword, as the Romans called it. Just a sword. Den, another conjunction, which means afterwards or then. Another ablative absolute, reactus, is another perfect passive participle, this time from recio, which means to throw back or throw off. So having, actually, let's do that, just to have it more with how it, the words closer to where they come in the Latin. Having thrown off bainula. Bainula is a cloak, basically. It's at least a kind of cloak. I think there are a few different words for cloak, but it's cloak, except reaccio is its perfect passive participle, so it's really his cloak, then his cloak having been, oh, so many E's, thrown off. Maybe once his cloak was thrown off. Yeah, let's do that. So this guy runs away when there's danger, and then comes straight back, takes out his sword, throws off his cloak like he's ready to throw down. In fact, Gedo inquit illum iam curabo sentiat. That's still a verb. The V's are just meant to mark verbs, but I don't know, usually I like to do it for the main verb, but no, there's not really a main verb, especially when inquit comes in between words. It's really annoying. Quos attentaret. Okay, you'll see what I mean in a second. So, cedo is, of course, a verb, and it could mean to go, or withdraw, or depart, but it can also be a very irregular verb that is only in the imperative, despite not really looking like imperative. It does just kind of look like the first principal part, the first person singular present active indicative. But there is an irregular verb that is just cedo, or in the plural, cedite, which is just essentially saying in order to give something. Generally like hand over some kind of object or a person, or even technically words, because it could be like used to tell me or explain. So let's say bring, and gonna skip inquit for a second. Illum is the accusative form of ille, which is the pronouns for like that guy, that man. Bring that man. Or honestly, really kind of just bring him on. Inquit is just the verb of speaking, or at least a verb of speaking. And this is the third person singular present perfect active indicative. Oh wait, no, this is just, it could be present or perfect. Wow. From inquam. And so he said. There's a couple of different ways to say that, but this is one of them. Quotation marks. I like having the quotation marks. Iam is an adverb that can mean already, soon, or now. Now, curabo. Curabo is the first person singular future active indicative. The bo is how you will know that there's future. Bo, be, or boo. And with the endings is a good way to tell future tense, at least for some verbs. But it comes from kuro, which generally means to help. But it could also be to arrange, see to, take care of. So now I will see. Honestly, I think you could translate it. I will make sure. Sentiat is the third person singular present active subjunctive from sentio, which means to feel or sense, perceive. He would feel, I guess. The subjunctive is usually for less sure things. Indicative mood is for just statement of fact. He said, he fled, that sort of thing. But subjunctive is more like he would, or maybe should, or let us, that kind of thing. But he would feel. Quos is the accusative plural form of qui, which is a relative pronoun. Which, or maybe that which, attentaret. This is the third person singular, either future perfect. Yeah, it's probably not future perfect. I've never seen Phaedrus use the future perfect tense. So this is probably the third person singular perfect active subjunctive from attento, which means to try or attempt or even attack and assail. But probably he tried that which he tried. Bring him on, he said. Now I'll make sure he would feel that which he tried. Maybe, hold on. Maybe the subjunctive is just something to do with kuro here. Yeah, okay. It looks like it could be used with ut, ne, or just a simple subjunctive for a sort of purpose. I will make sure that this happens, which is the purpose. So I will make sure he, let's just say, he feels that which he tried. Yeah, I think that works. Tunc qui depugnaverat. Tunc is a conjunction meaning then. And qui, like I said, relative pronoun. This is the nominative form. So then, he who depugnaverat. This is the third person singular pluperfect active indicative from depugno, which means to fight or battle. So, he who had fought, referring to the soldier that actually stayed and fought. Velem estis verbis saltem adiuvises modo. Oh wait, nope. Hold on. You're not accusative. You look accusative, saltem, but you're not accusative. You are an adverb. Velem is the first person singular imperfect active subjunctive from volo. Volo means to wish or want. So I, as the subject, would have wished. Istis is the dative or ablative form, dative or ablative plural form from iste. And iste is just, it's also kind of pronoun meaning that. Just, it seems to be more so for things that are near the subject, but really plural with that, those. And verbis is from verbum, which means word. Dative or ablative plural again. Ooh. Saltem, like I said, is an adverb that could also be spelled with an I rather than an E, but here it's an E, which means at least, anyhow. Let's say at least. Adiuises is the second person singular pluperfect active subjunctive from adiuo, which means to help or assist or be useful. Let's say you would have helped. Oh, yeah. Modo is an adverb that means just or only. So let's say just. I would have wished you would have helped. Let's put the with here, because I'm pretty sure this is also ablative of means, with at least just saltem modo those words. So even if it was just those words, he would have appreciated those. Constantior fuisem vera existemans. I don't know how to mark this. I guess there? Maybe. Constantior is the comparative adjective of constans. Constans means like steadfast, resolute. So more or less resolute, since it's comparative. Probably more. Let's say steadfast. No. Resolute. I think that works better. Fuisem is the first person singular pluperfect active subjunctive from sum. Sum is a very common word, very common verb. It's just the verb for to be. Sum is I am. Est is it is, or he is. Fuisem is, I guess, I would have been, since it is pluperfect and in the subjunctive mood. Vera is the either feminine nominative or ablative singular, or potentially neutered nominative and accusative plural, from veros, an adjective that means true, or real, or genuine even. Let's say true. Oh, wait, I think... Yes. Okay. I think I know how this is working exactly. But existemans is the present participle from existimo, which means to think or judge, estimate, suppose. So present participle, rather than the perfect passive, which is I was blah. This is, I mean, I haven't really explained participles anyway, not in this video anyways. Participles are just nouns or adjectives formed from verbs. So, like I said, the thrown off cloak, the slain bandit. But here, it's really kind of being used as an adjective describing the constantior miles, the more steadfast soldier, thinking vera. Vera, I think, is describing the verbis. So it would be nominative plural neuter, because verbum is a neuter noun. And since it's plural with those, it has to be vera, thinking them to be true, basically. Oh, wait. I would have been fuisem constantior more resolute existemans thinking them to be true. Existemans vera. So if only he had actually just stayed and had even just encouraged his friend, companion, because even then it would have helped him be more steadfast in his resistance against the bandit. Though he won anyways, so nunc Conde. Oh wait, I don't need that yet. Ferum et linguam. Parter is an adverb, not an adjective. There we go. Nunc, conjunction. This just means now. Yam can be now. Nunc is just now. Conde. Conde is the imperative, the singular imperative form from condo. I don't think I actually said imperative, but it's another one of the moods of a Latin verb. Imperative is in order. So cedo is always in the imperative mood. And conde is the imperative mood, imperative singular, I should say, for condo, which means usually to put together or put away. And in this case, it would be to sheathe. Ferrum. Ferrum, if you know the periodic table of elements, this is why iron is Fe, because of Latin. That's also why gold on the periodic table is Au, because aurum is gold in Latin. Now, sheathe your iron. But this is an example of metonymy, where you use a part of something to refer to a whole thing, like referring to a car as one's wheels. So, let's just say, sheathe your sword. Just simplify it a little bit. Et and linguam. Linguam is the accusative singular form from lingua, which kind of figuratively means language, lingua latina, the Latin language, but it more literally refers to what really creates the language, the tongue. That is also probably part of why language can be referred to as different tongues. Pariter is an adverb meaning equally or likewise. Let's say equally futilem. Also accusative, agreeing with linguam, which this noun, or not noun, adjective, is often spelled with just one T. In the Latin library text, it is spelled with one T. But I'm using the Perseus Tufts text, which honestly I've kind of regretted throughout this whole thing, because I like the Latin library text more, usually, I have found. But I'm sticking with Perseus Tufts for this whole series. But I'll probably be using the Latin library more going forward. But Perseus Tufts has the two T's. And this is an adjective that means like something that's leaky or easily pouring something out. But more figuratively, something untrustworthy or worthless, futile is the verb, is the word that we get from this. So equally, let's say worthless, yeah. So now sheathe your sword and equally worthless tongue. Now put away your sword and shut up, basically. Ut possis alios ignorantes fallere, ego qui sum expertus quantis fugias veribus. Ugh. There we go. I'm just going to mark up to the end of the sentence. Scio quam virtuti non sit credendum. Ah. Quam. There we go. So, ut is a conjunction, but it can mean different things depending on the mood of the verb following. The indicative is like or as. The subjunctive is more of a result, so that. So looking at possis, possis is the subjunctive from possum, second person singular present active subjunctive. So ut, so that. Possis, you are able, from possum. Alios is, this is also a pronoun meaning other, is it not? Yeah. Except this is more of an adjective, though also is alter. Okay. Alios and alter kind of seem pretty synonymous, honestly. At the very least, just very similar. But other ignorantes. Actually, I think I got it backwards then. Because, right, you're the adjective modifying ignorantes, not ignorantes modifying alios. And ignorantes is the nominative or accusative plural form from ignorans, another present active participle. So it's from ignoro, which means to not know or be ignorant of. So others unknowing, or yeah, I think it just has to be not knowing. Fallere is the infinitive form from fallo. The infinitive is just the to whatever. To do, to be, to deceive is what fallo means. To deceive, beguile, trick, or cheat. So that you are able to deceive others unknowing. Ego is just the pronoun I in the nominative case. And then another relative clause, who, sum expertus. I think I marked this weird too, because I think technically, a lot of the time, perfect participles will work with the verb sum to fully complete their meaning. They don't have to, like we saw with reacta, but they often do. And expertus is from experior, which means to test or attempt or experience. So I who experienced, and this kind of sounds passive to me, but it is active. Experior is a deponent verb. A deponent verb is one that always looks passive, but is actually always active in meaning. And so in that case, in the perfect tense, rather than having a perfect passive participle, it is a perfect active participle. And someone having experienced something kind of sounds like something happened to them, but they are the ones actively experiencing the thing. So it is still active. Quantis is an adjective from quantos. This is dative or ablative plural. The is endings usually is a dative or ablative plural for nouns and adjectives. And it means how much or how many. Fugias is the second person singular present active subjunctive from fugio. And fugio also means to fly or depart or run away. So you, I guess, flee. And viribus is the dative or ablative plural from vir, which means a man. So men, and it agrees with quantis. So I experienced, I guess, from ablative, ablative, I don't know what the term is, but when something is going away from something else, it's often with the ablative case. From how many men you flee. Or, yeah, I would say that. Either that or how many men you flee from. I think that sounds more natural for English. And I'm not sure, but if I were to guess, maybe fugias is in the subjunctive due to, for subjunctive of characteristic? Maybe? Describing the characteristic of how many flees from? Maybe? Because it's often used in a relative clause, but the relative clause is more it's the soldier who stayed that's the subject here, so I don't know. Maybe it's subjunctive of characteristic. But skio is something I know. Because it literally means I know. It's just the first principal part. First person singular, present active indicative. quam can mean a few different things, but I think here it is how much. Like how quantus can be how much or how many, quam can also be how much, just kind of to such a degree. Virtuti is the dative form from virtus, which means virtue. Non, not. Sit is the third person singular present active subjunctive from sum. So would, I guess. Credendum is the accusative form from the, or maybe not. It's not the object, because actually sum takes the nominative for both, like, what is something else. But wait, no, it's kind of the object, because it's the object of skio. I know, kind of like be believed. It's a future passive participle, so would be believed. I know would, not would, be believed. Oh. Yeah, be believed. And tuai is the dative form from tu, which is you. No, from tuus, which is your. Which agrees with virtuti. Because interestingly enough, virtus is a feminine noun, despite it also basically meaning manliness. But I know how much... Oh, okay, that's the missing piece that I had forgotten. So, credendum is the future passive participle from credo. Credo can take either the accusative or the dative case. So virtuti tuae isn't acting as an indirect object to credendum, it is the object of credendum. So, essentially it would be, I know how much it would not be trustworthy, like literally, for your virtue. Well, not trustworthy. It needed to be participle. It would not be... Almost need to say how much your virtue is not to be trusted. I think that's the best way to put it. But let me know if you all know a better way to word this that might be a little closer to the Latin. Illi assignari debet haec narratio, qui re secunda fortis est dubia. No. A dubia fugax. So, illi is the dative singular form from ille, which, yeah, dative form from, like, illum. So, to that, assignari is the passive infinitive, to be done, from assigno, which means to appoint, or assign. We get the word assign from this word. Or ascribe. Let's say to be ascribed, I think sounds best. Debet is the third person singular present active indicative from debeo. Debeo is to, it could mean to owe something, but it really is like you should or ought or must. So should. Haec is a pronoun, nominative, feminine, singular for this. And narratio is just the nominative singular form for a narration or narrative or story. I'm going to go with narrative. And since it's nominative, this narrative should be ascribed to that kind of one, qui, who. Re is from res, which means a thing or a matter, and it's the ablative singular form. Secunda is an interesting one, because it is the ablative singular feminine form from secundus, which generally means second. But as an adjective, it can also, kind of in a poetic way, I don't know how this came to be, but poetically it could be favorable or fortunate. Fortis is the nominative form. We saw it before in the dative with, no, not dative, ablative, with forti. Fortis is the nominative form, so brave. And est is dubia, is also an adjective. In fact, technically, it's also modifying re. So dubious, for situations, can mean precarious, dangerous, doubtful, dubious. So let's say dangerous, given the circumstance. And fugax is also an adjective, just more so, I guess this is more, these are modifying qui, but fugax means like flighty or avoidant. Not necessarily cowardly, just quick to run away. So let's say flighty. Into English word order. So it should be assigned to that one who, in a fortunate, res is such a, it's such a catch-all word for things. It's so weird to translate sometimes. But okay, it can mean like circumstance. Is brave in a dangerous one is flighty. So this narrative should be ascribed to that one. I wanted to say those before, but it doesn't really work because it's not nominative. It has to be dative, and dative, it's only dative singular. So who in a favorable circumstance is brave. In a dubious or dangerous circumstance is flighty. So one who will stay when things are safe and will run away the moment things start turning south. And there we go. The last of Phaedrus' Fables for now. I think it's a pretty funny story, having these guys set upon by a bandit. One immediately jets off, the other actually fights and wins, defends himself, and afterwards, the guy who ran away comes back, sword out of his sheath, throws off his cape, says, "Bring him on, I'll help ya." And the one who stayed just completely calling him out on it. It's fun, and kinda, I feel like it works well with Socrates ad amicos, Socrates to his friends, where the moral is how rare true friends are. So the one who will stay, the one who will flee at the very sight of any kind of danger, the very hint of any kind of danger, is not a real true friend. But those who stay would be, and how many you'd have of those, you'd be able to fit into a very small house. But of course, this moral is not necessarily about friends, just people in general. Brave people stay in danger, cowards run, and then come back when things are safe. A fair moral to tell. Anyways, let's get to the Latin and then English readings and end it off. Duo cum incidissent in latrona milites, unus profugit. Alter autem restitit, et vendicavet sese forti dextera, latrono exciso, timidus accurrit comes, stringit quae gladium den reiecta paenula. Cedo inquit illum, iam corabo sentiat, quos attentarit. Tunc qui depugnaverat, velum istis verbus saltem iuisses modo. Constantior fuissem vera existamans. Nunc conde ferrum et linguam parete futilem, ut possis alios ignorantes fallere, ego qui sum expertis quantis fugias veribus, scio quam virtuti non sit crendendum tuae. Illi assignari debet, haec narratio, qui re secunde fortis est, dubia fugax. When two soldiers had happened upon a bandit, one flees, the other, however, resisted, and he protected himself with a brave right hand. After the bandit was felled, the timid soldier runs up to his companion and unsheathes his sword. Then, once his cloak was thrown off, "Bring him on," he said. "Now I will make sure he feels that which he tried." Then he who had fought, "I would have wished you would have helped at least with just those words. I would have been more resolute, thinking them to be true. Now sheathe your sword and equally worthless tongue, so that you are able to deceive others unknowing. I, who experienced how many men you flee from, I know how much your virtue is not to be trusted. This narrative should be ascribed to that one who, in a fortunate circumstance, is brave, in a dangerous one, is flighty." If you've made it this far in the video, then thank you very much for watching. Especially if you've watched the other videos, because I enjoyed talking through all of those fables quite a lot. And I hope you enjoyed listening through my rambling about the Latin, about different specific things, about either Tiberius or Demetrius the King. And I hope you got a little bit of something out of it, whether it was learning about different fables that you may not have heard of before, or picking up a little bit of Latin yourself, just practicing it more, or even taking something away from the different morals of the fables. I wasn't super focused on that, but still. Like I said before, I will probably return to Phaedrus at some point, because there are plenty more fables that are really interesting that I would love to translate through. But, at least for now, I want to go to something different. I've got a couple different things in the works that I want to do, so I will be focusing on that. Until then, remember to spay and neuter your pets, et valete viatores.